Hello, my name is Natalie Montes, and I'll be talking about the project-based learning chapters 3 to 5 from our text, Reinventing Project-Based Learning, Your Field Guide to Real-World Projects in the Digital Age. Starting with chapter 3, it's titled Imagining the Possibilities. The chapter mainly focuses on starting the process, on how you're going to find the motivation to create these project-based learning lessons. So evaluate what is most important to you. And this really relates back to our teaching philosophy. What do you want the students to take out of it? Big ideas, which means real world application, making it apply to not just the school, not just the students, but the larger community. Rigor, we really want it to stretch intellectual muscles of our students. We want it to be tough. We don't want it to be impossible, but we do want it to be, we do want them to have to put in some work. Bloom categories of objectives. So remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. The beginning ones, remember and understand, those are important. However, we really want to get our students to analyze, to evaluate, and create. When we can do these things, they really have a deeper understanding for the subject matter that we're doing a project on. And then we do want to develop information and media literacy. We want students to know where they can find sources and the correct way of looking for things as well as citing things. Learning dispositions are important traits or characteristics that are often taught as byproducts of projects. So we're looking for confidence, persistence, curiosity, and resourcefulness. And these kind of things are built when our projects are well designed. So students will have to be persistent, they'll have to persevere, they'll have to be able to find resources on their own. Know your audience. So when you're making a project, think about your students and think about why they care about what they're doing. If they don't care, then they're not really going to put forth their best effort. But if they care and if they feel that they have some kind of control over it, then they will put better effort towards it. And then essential learning functions. So we want them to research, to make ideas visible, to collaborate, to learn project management skills, to reflect, and then to practice supported study, which is using books as a resource. So we don't really want to use books as our main source of teaching, but definitely to be there as a resource. That's part of our information literacy. Chapter 4 is strategies for discovery. So this is how can teachers find projects or ideas for projects. I have 2 bolded ideas here, so if you're using someone else's project idea, just beware of pitfalls. Some examples are long on activity but short on learning outcomes, and overly scripted with many steps. So those are just some things to look out for if you're going to borrow someone else's idea. But if they do have a pitfall, then it's important to feel free to adapt them to make them right for your classroom and your students. It's always a good idea to individualize for the students that you have if you're going to use some kind of model. If designing your own project, remember that good projects have a few things in common, such as they're loosely designed and open-ended, they're realistic and extend upon many disciplines, and they involve those outside of the school community. So again, the big idea, connecting it to the real world and the outside world. More on chapter 4. Some project ideas can stem from many places, so it's important to look at news stories, what's going on in our world, contemporary issues, as well as a classroom irritant that we can turn into a project. And then students' interests and questions. Again, it's important to individualize the students that you have. If they care about something and are interested in it, it really is going to be a better project than if we're just pulling something out of a book or out of something that you saw online. Often new projects can stem from one original one. This offers extended learning and a continuous focus around a general topic. So it's kind of like the tree. It starts with a base, but it really ends up branching out into many different disciplines and different projects. Chapter 5 is all about assessment, so making assessment meaningful, not just assessing for whatever. We're going to look at 2 big things. What do we want students to know and be able to do, and how will we know they achieve this? So there's 2 kinds of assessment. Assessment for learning, which is formative assessment. This kind of assessment happens during the project process. So the teacher is kind of checking in with students, making sure they're progressing well. And then assessment of learning, which is summative assessment, which happens at the end of the project. Summative assessment, often we look at rubrics when we're going to go ahead and grade. So there are school-wide rubrics, which are used by an entire school. The benefits to this is that students have the same language in many of their classes as the whole schools and use the same rubric. However, with these, it is important that we do individualize. As a teacher, you individualize your rubric to make sure that you're reflecting exactly what you're looking for. There's also rubrics made from scratch. These are really important. We just make sure that we are very clear. Again, the downfall, which the school-wide rubrics does have, is that it won't be the same for all of their classes, so it's important to be very clear and be very descriptive and informational when you're explaining the rubric to these children, to the students. And then selecting assignments and tasks. So it's making sure that we're selecting assignments that are like realistic and relevant to the project and not something that doesn't make any sense. And then formative assessments, checking in with students along the way. And some examples of this are checklists. So like these are things you should have had done by now. Exit slips, asking students to write a little like slip on how they're doing on their project before they leave class. Coffee talks, which is kind of like meetings. You can just make sure that everyone's on track or if they have any questions. And then project logs. So just writing if it's a group project, who's doing what. This is where we are in our project. Kind of like a timeline as well as like roles that people are going to take in the group. And then this is the reference, which is our textbook, Reinventing Project-Based Learning, your field guide to real-world projects in the digital age. Thank you so much.